Hello student, myself Shailender Kumar, Assistant Professor, Mass Communication, Jagannath University, Jaipur, Rajasthan. Today I am going to discuss on the topic History of Print Media Post-Independence. However, the mission phase of Indian journalism ended with our country attaining independence in 1947. Many changes took place after independence. Most newspapers previously owned by the British changed into Indian hands. News agency services became available on a regular basis with the Press Trust of India, which started in 1946. The missionary zeal with the missionary zeal was replaced with a professional approach. Journalism becomes a profession. People join newspapers not to serve the country or a cause, but to earn a salary. Similarly, newspaper organizations also became profit oriented. Competition among newspaper increased as they got involved in readership battles. Factors like technological developments, rising literacy levels, increasing buying power, people and a keen interest to know what is happening around contributed to the growth of the newspaper. And soon it grew to newer heights. By the 1970s, newspapers in India acquired the status of an industry. Can you guess how many newspapers in India have crossed 100 years of publication and are still in circulation? There are 41 such newspapers in the country and are called centenarian newspapers. Among English dailies, four have crossed this mark: the Times of India, the Hindu, the Tribune, and the Statesman. Among language newspapers, Mumbai Samachar, Amrit Bazar Patrika, Malayalam Manorama, and Deepika are among the centurions. Generally speaking, journalism is flourishing in India today. The Indian language newspapers have overtaken the English newspapers in number and circulation. Eventually, the advertisers also realized the huge potential of the regional paper market, partially due to their own research and more owing to the efforts of the regional papers to make the advertisers aware of the huge market. These advertisers paid revenues to the newspaper house and in return publicized their products throughout the locality. These newspapers in India not only acted as news providers but also promoters of certain market products. Some of the prominent newspapers in India in the recent times are the Times of India, the Statesman, the Telegraph, the Economic Times, and Indian Express, and so on. The Economic Times is one of the India's leading business newspapers carrying news about the economy, companies, infrastructure, trends in the economy, finance, stocks, forex, and commodities. News from around the world and from the world of politics, besides editorial and various other features. Formation of Press Commission of India. During the post-independence days in 1947, a new era in India slowly came in which the role of press changed in India. The government of India appointed two press commissions to make a comprehensive inquiry into the state of press in India and examine issues associated with its working conditions of journalists. First Press Commission. The first Press Commission was formed under the chairmanship of Justice J. S. Radhakrishnan on 23rd September 1952 by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to inquire into the state of press in India. Some of the other members of the 11-member working group were Dr. C. P. Ramaswamy Iyer, Acharya Narendra Deo, Dr. Zakir Hussain, and Dr. V. K. V. Rao. It was asked to look into factors which influence the establishment and maintenance of high standards of journalism in India. The commission inquired into the control, management, and ownership, the financial structure, as well as other important aspects of the newspaper industry in the country. The commission, after a careful and delayed study, concluded that there should be indigenation of both capital and the staff, especially at the higher levels, and it was highly desirable that proprietary interest in daily and weekly newspaper should vest predominantly in Indian hands. Some of the recommendations and observations are to protect the freedom of the press and to maintain high standards of journalism, a press council should be established. The Press Council of India was established on July 4, 1966, which started functioning from November 16. On this date, National Press Day is celebrated. To prepare the account of the press and the position of every year, there should be appointment of the Registrar of Newspaper for India, RNI. It was also accepted and RNI was appointed in July 1956. Price paid schedule should be introduced. It was also accepted in 1956. For maintaining a relationship between the government and the press, a press committee should be constituted. It was accepted and a press committee was constituted on 22nd of September 1962. Working Journalist Act should be implemented. The government implemented this, and in 1955 the working journalists and other newspaper employees conditions of service and miscellaneous provisions act was set up. It recommended establishment of a fact-finding committee to evaluate the financial position of the newspapers and news agencies. A fact-finding committee was set up on 14th of April 1972. It submitted its report on 14th of January 1975. For protecting the main principle of the principle for protecting the main principles of the freedom of the press and to help the newspapers against monopoly tendencies, a newspaper financial corporation should be constituted. It was accepted in principle And on 4th of December 1970, a bill was also presented in Lok Sabha, but it lapsed. Second Press Commission in India. The Second Press Commission was set up in May 1978, having Justice P.C. Goswami as its chairman. The commission resigned in January 1980. The commission was reconstituted in April 1980 with Justice K. Matthew as its chairman. The commission submitted its report in 1982. The Government of India constituted the Second Press Commission on May 1978. The Second Press Commission wanted the press to be neither a mindless adversary nor an unquestioning ally. The Commission wanted the press to play a responsible role in the development process. The, the press should be widely accessible to the people if it is to reflect their aspirations and problems. The question of urban bias too has received attention of the Commission. The Commission said that for development to take place, internal stability was as important as safeguarding national security. The Commission also highlighted the role and therefore responsibility of the press in preventing and deflecting communal conflict. Both press commissions of India included several respectable members from the press. Recommendations of the first press commission for the first time provides idea of what a responsible press should be. The second press commission formulated in a clear manner that development should be the central focus of the press in a country which is building itself to become a self-reliant and prosperous society. The commission declared that a responsible press could also be a free press and vice versa. Freedom and responsibility are complementary. The main recommendations can be briefed as follows. An attempt should be made to establish a cordial relation between the government and the press. For the development of small and medium newspaper, there should be establishment of newspaper development commission. Newspaper industry should be separated from industries and commercial interest. There should be appointment of board of trustees between editors and properties of the newspaper. Price paid schedule should be introduced. There should be a fixed proportion of news and advertisements in small, medium, and big newspaper. Newspaper industry should be relieved from the impact of foreign capital. No predictions should be published in newspaper and magazines. The misuse of the image of the advertisement should be discontinued. The government should prepare a stable advertisement policy. The Press Information Bureau should be reconstituted. The Commission saw the role of the press in a developing country as being neither that of an adversary nor an ally of the government. It recommended newspapers should refrain from sensational presentation of news on outbreak of communal disturbance. Press council should be given powers to deny accretions. Editor takes the responsibility of all matter published in the newspaper, including the advertisements. Indian Newspaper Society INS. Indian Newspaper Society is the central body representing newspaper publishers. Founded in 1939, the society safeguards and promotes the interest of newspaper. The INS was earlier known as the Indian and Eastern Newspaper Society IENS. Press Trust of India was set up as a result of the efforts of INS. The society was also instrumental in the formation of Audit Bureau of Circulation in 1948. There are nearly 700 members in the INS, Audit Bureau of Circulation ABC. This bureau was founded in 1948 is a non-profit association consisting of publishers, advertisers, and advertising agencies. Its headquarters is in Bombay. Its function is to devise and lay down a standard and uniform method by which member publishers shall compute their circulation. The ABC verifies the circulation claims of publishers using the services of chartered accountants it appoints. It also issues certificates of circulation once in 6 months. The press during emergency. The Indian press during the period between 1975 to 77, when Indira Gandhi had declared independence, was the most trying period for journalism. As emergency, the right to the freedom of speech and expression, most newspapers had to shut down. For the first time since the British rule, the basic fundamental right of being able to express one's views and ideas were disputed. For the first time since the independence, the government of India was highly criticized and many newspapers started flourishing in the underground. One of the newspapers that refused to bow down to the pressures applied by the government was the Indian Express. But all forms of popular media bowed down to the Congress government for 19 whole months that when the emergency was finally lifted, it felt like a breath of fresh air. Most mainstream dailies bearing the Indian Express and the Statesman fell in line, magazines and journals, including Himmat, Seminar, Mainstream, Janta, Quest, Freedom First, Frontier, Sadhana, Tugallak, Swaraj, were censored and banned. The Indian Express and the Statesman left the lead editorial space blank as a mark of protest. Correspondents of the Times of London, the Daily Telegraph, the Washington Post, Christian Science Monitor, and the Los Angeles Times were expelled. Reporters of The Economist and The Guardian left after receiving threats. The BBC withdrew its correspondent Mark Tully. Kuldeep Nair of the Indian Express was detained for organizing a protest of journalists in Delhi. The Home Ministry told Parliament in May 1976 that 7,000 persons had been held for circulating clandestine literature opposing the emergency. Kishore Kumar was banned by All India Radio after he refused to support the Youth Congress. News agencies in India. News agencies in India can be referred to as the banks of news. They are the major source of supply and circulation of information within and amongst countries. News agencies in India are organizations of journalists established in different zones of the nation to provide news reports to organizations in the news trade. Houses providing newspapers, magazines, and radio and television broadcasters use the news agencies as a larger source for news. News agencies in India may also be referred to as a wire service, newswire, or news service. There are many news agencies in India that collect news and give them accordingly to the other news houses to finally reach out to the mass. Lately, many news agencies provide specialized services. They collect and disseminate news in the restricted areas of business, stock exchange, tourist information, weather reports, and scientific news, and so on. There are four dominant news agencies in India: the Press Trust of India, PTI, the United News of India, UNI, the Hindustan Samachar, HS, and Samachar Bharati, SB. Now, the current scenario of print media. This was also a period of rapid technological advancements, helping in first hand news gathering from distant places, including remote and rural areas, with speed or simply downloading from internet services, transmitting, editing, color printing, and delivering the final product to the readers all over the country. The result the result is multi editions of major newspapers, special supplements, segmentations, and zoning, giving rise to regional and district news editions. The increased capacity to handle large amount of news daily made it possible for newspapers to take upon some of the features of magazine journalism as well. Consequently, some of the news magazines were closed down, like the Illustrated Weekly of India, Dharm Yug, Sunday, etc., while many special interest magazines like Business India, Business World, and Business Today, film magazines like Filmfare, Stardust, Cineblades, computer and technology magazines like Computer Today, telematics become more popular. To meet the growing interest in economic developments and the market, most daily newspapers, both English and other Indian languages, added special business sections. Not only that, the number of exclusive business and economic dailies increased and became popular. The coming of many 24 into 7 television news channel posed some threats to newspaper industry, but soon it adjusted to new environment. Television news channels may have become the prime sources of hotspot news and breaking of news stories. The newspapers continue to the providers of the details of the news stories and analysis. The newspaper started giving more features and soft news stories and photo features, and what is popularly known as page 3 journalism came into the world. It would not be wrong to say that television news is like the appetizer and newspapers are like the main menus for satisfying the hunger to know as to what is happening daily in the world around us. Now, some contemporary challenges. Today, the press is accused of indulging in paid news, which means publishing paid features or news articles in exchange for money. These are different from advertisements since they look like normal news features. This is an ethical violation as readers may not be able to differentiate between news and paid news. Other key issues the press faces today are violation of Majithya Wage Board recommendation on salaries of working journalists, poor ethical standards, and spreading yellow journalism, sensational stories. However, not all changes are bad. New experiments have added color and made newspaper more interesting. The newspaper apps and e-papers have allowed people to access online editions of newspapers from their cities despite being thousands of kilometers away. The improved presentation styles, better use of colors, pictures, designs, and graphics due to rapid growth of digital media, fast and convenient editing through computers, and content customization have made it a very dynamic industry. However, commercial consideration have at times taken precedence over professional propensity during to sensationalization of news, presentation and commentary to boost the sales, bringing a bad name to the noble profession of keeping the public informed about the environment in which we live and damages the credibility of the fourth pillar of democracy. To check such tendencies, self regulation by the press itself is preferred to any outside interference from outside. The designated body to do this is Editors Guild of India. Now, the history of magazines in India. A magazine is a periodical publication containing a variety of articles generally financed by advertising or purchased by readers. Magazines means a storehouse and thus has a variety of content in it. Magazines are mostly published weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. These are also published quarterly or half yearly. A few magazines are also published once a year. Magazines can be as general as a Reader's Digest or as specific as a TV guides. However, varied news magazines are they share two common characteristics. They are published regularly, and each magazine appeals to the interest of some specific segment of society. Are magazines the fifth state? The readership of magazine is by and large confined to somewhat influential, affluent, and discriminating sections of the people. They cover important events in depth and investigative reports and sensational revelations. For these characters, the magazines are called the future state in Japan and are proving to be that in India also. Magazine booms in independence. The periodical press in our country has been expanding and exploding, diversifying and professionalism, and thus becoming enriched in contents, looks, and impact. This sudden growth during 1970 to 80 is called the magazine boom. Even otherwise, during the last 45 years, magazines of all categories and periodicity expanded nearly six times and touched the figure of 28,000 in 1992. They commanded a total circulation of over 36 million copies. Delhi and Uttar Pradesh were amongst the top producers of the periodicals in India. The number of actual readers was, of course, much more because each copy of magazine passes through the hand of at least 20 persons. Magazines published before 1917 were very low on production value because of lack of printing technologies. Also, magazines were very costly and not many people afford them. Changes also took place in field of style and substance of editorial content, variety of topics covered, and professionalism, marketing and designing. One result of the 1975-77 emergency was that is established investigative journalism in a big way. Newspapers could not take up investigative journalism to any great extent, being busy with coverage daily to daily events, so many magazines come up to fill this void. Leading this magazine boom was India Today. It was started in 1975. It was started as a news magazine, while most of the existing news magazines were either literally digests or general magazines covering a wide variety of topics. Madhu Trihan, the publisher, was encouraged by success of the very first issue of India Today. Trihan's brother Arun Puri took over as the editor of India Today and made it a big success. With skillful editing and slick production, India Today captured two kind of readers. One, the existing newspapers readers who wanted to read all well written, detailed, and analytical stories. Second, the people who did not read newspapers much and wanted the news delivered to them once a fortnight in a glossy, easy to digest package. Soon, India Today became the highest circulated English magazine. Two magazines from the south that made big at the national level, The Week and The Frontline. The Malayalam Manorama group from Kottayam started The Week. After enjoying a lot of success in the 80s, The Week lost its circulation in the mid 90s. Soon it bounced back with a design revamp and now it is doing pretty well. The publisher of Hindu started The Frontline. It was a fortnightly, which is the first pictorial news magazine of India. Now, some challenges from other media. Periodicals are exposed to competition from the electronic media, includes video magazines, satellite TV, cable TV pose quite a challenge. Different magazines in different areas and in different languages must evolve their own promotional strategies based on readers' polls. In fact, what is important in that the magazine should woo their readers by satisfying their curiosity by giving them the type of detailed information and lively entertainment which they wish to have. Now, conclude this topic. During the post independence days in 1947, a new era in India slowly came in which the role of press changed in India. The contribution of print media is providing information and transfer of knowledge is remarkable. India's periodical journalism has been the cornerstone of our press. Magazines contain different shades of opinion. For that reason, they can stimulate more critical and point discussion. That's all. Thank you.